Of the properties I just talked about, the first one I want to demonstrate is the resolve property. It works very much like the resolve property available in NGRoute. Before I go add it to one of our states, let's take a look at the problem it will solve. You may have noticed that when I click on the Activities link, we're immediately taken to that view, but the data shows up a second later. I'll do that one more time just so you can see what I mean. I've artificially slowed down the network call that retrieves the data for that controller just to simulate some of the network slowness you might experience in a real-world application. There's nothing inherently wrong with it working the way it does right now, but you might decide you would rather the view not load until all of the data is available. If we use the resolve property to retrieve the data, then the state transition will not happen until the promise that returns the data is resolved. The data will then be injected into the controller as a parameter. To implement that, I'll paste in a resolve property on the activities state. The activities property is assigned a function. The function takes the data service as a parameter, and the result of calling getAllActivities on the data service is returned from the function. Since getAllActivities returns a promise, the resolve property will wait until that promise is resolved before injecting the result into the controller. I now need to go to the AllActivities controller and configure it to use the injected value. I'll first make a little more room and then inject a new value named Activities, which is the same name specified on the object assigned to the resolve property. I can now assign that activities parameter to the property on the view model named AllActivities, which the view is already configured to use. Since the data is now being injected into the controller, we no longer need the call the controller makes to get the data from the data service, so I'll come down a bit and comment out that code. I'll refresh the app, and this time when I click the Activities link, you'll notice a slight pause before the state transition happens. That is that delay needed for the data to be retrieved. However, when the view does finally appear, it already contains all of the data. I'll do that one more time so you can see it all appear at once. Let's now look at associating some additional data with a state. I'll paste in a couple of additional properties on the activities state. As I mentioned in the slides, you can use any name you want for these properties, although most of the time I think you will see it referred to as the data property. Here I'm defining a property named data that is assigned an object with the property's name and description. I'm also adding another property named foo, which is assigned an object that has a property named myFoo. To see how we can access that data, I'll go back to the AllActivities controller. I'm going to inject the log service so we can output the data to the console window. We saw earlier that we can use the current property of the state service to get a reference to the current state. The new properties I added to the state configuration object will just appear as new properties on the state, so I'll add a couple of log statements to output those new properties here. To see the results, I'll just refresh and open the browser's developer tools. When I click the Activities link, we can see the two objects get logged to the console just as we would expect. The last configuration properties I want to quickly demonstrate are the onEnter and onExit properties. I'll go to the classroom state this time and paste in the new properties. They both work the same way. You assign to them an injectable function that will execute when the state is entered or exited. I'm injecting the log service into both and just logging a message so that we can see that we've successfully implemented them. Now when I click the Classrooms link, we can see the message in the console that we've entered the classroom state. When I click a different link, we get the other message letting us know that we have exited the classroom state. Pretty straightforward and a nice way to inject some custom code as part of state transitions.